The airport in New York was buzzing with life that morning. Travelers rushed from one gate to another, dragging their suitcases, calling relatives, or grabbing a last-minute coffee before their flights. Among the crowd was Omar, a wealthy Arab businessman, known in the financial world for his sharp mind and vast fortune. To the people who worked with him, Omar was a man of strength and confidence, but today, he wasn't traveling as a businessman. He was traveling as a father. Cradled in his arms was his infant son, Adam, barely 6 months old. Adam had big brown eyes and a tiny fist that clutched the corner of his father's jacket. Omar's wife had passed away only a few months earlier, and this journey was his first time flying alone with his son. He was determined to be both mother and father, though deep down, he felt nervous. When the boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, Omar took a deep breath and carried Adam toward the plane. The staff at the gate recognized his name instantly and greeted him with respect. "Good morning, Mr. Omar," one of the attendants said warmly, offering to help with his bag. Omar gave a polite smile, nodded his thanks, and stepped inside the aircraft. The cabin smelled faintly of leather and fresh coffee. The first-class seats were wide, polished, and comfortable, but despite the luxury, Omar already knew the next several hours might be challenging. Flying with a baby was never easy. As passengers continued boarding, Omar gently rocked Adam in his arms, humming softly in Arabic, a lullaby his own mother once sang to him. For a few minutes, it worked. Adam closed his eyes, and Omar's heart felt lighter. Maybe, just maybe, the flight would go smoothly. But peace didn't last. As soon as the plane began to taxi toward the runway, Adam's face turned red, and a sharp cry escaped his lips. Then another. Within moments, his wails filled the cabin. Heads turned immediately. A man in a business suit frowned. A woman covered her ears with her scarf. Even the flight attendants exchanged nervous glances. Omar shifted uncomfortably, whispering to his son. "Shh, Habibi, it's okay. Daddy's here. Please, calm down." He rocked him gently, rubbed his back, offered a bottle, but Adam refused. The cries grew louder. Omar could feel heat rising in his chest, not anger, but helplessness. He was a man who could solve million-dollar problems, who could manage thousands of employees across countries, but here he was, unable to calm the tiny life he loved most. He kissed Adam's forehead, bouncing him softly, but nothing worked. Passengers whispered among themselves. A young couple exchanged annoyed looks. An elderly woman muttered, "This is going to be a long flight." Omar's throat tightened. He hated the judgment, but more than that, he hated that his son was in distress. A few rows back, in the economy cabin, sat Michael, a single father in his late 30s. He had a kind face, a little rough around the edges, and eyes that told stories of struggles and perseverance. Sitting beside him was his 10-year-old daughter, Emma, a cheerful and bright-eyed girl with golden hair tied into a neat braid. Michael worked as a mechanic back in Chicago. Life had not been easy for him since his wife left years ago. He raised Emma alone, doing his best to give her both love and stability. Despite hardships, Emma grew into a gentle, empathetic child. She noticed things most adults ignored, especially when someone was hurting. The moment Adam began crying, Emma's eyes wandered to the front. She watched Omar carefully, the way he held his son, the worry etched on his face, and the weight of people's stares pressing down on him. Emma didn't see a millionaire in that moment, she saw a father who was struggling, just like her own dad had struggled many times when she was younger. "Dad," she whispered, tugging at Michael's sleeve. Michael leaned closer. "What is it, sweetheart? Can I help the baby?" Emma asked softly. Her eyes were full of sincerity, her voice calm. Michael blinked, surprised. "Emma, that's not our baby. That's not our business. Let the man take care of his own child." Emma shook her head. "But Dad, the baby's scared. I can tell. Maybe he just needs someone different. Sometimes, when I was little and you couldn't make me stop crying, Grandma used to hold me, remember?" Michael paused. He remembered those nights all too well, Emma wailing, his arms aching, his patience tested, and then his mother stepping in with a calm presence that soothed the baby instantly. He looked at his daughter, her small hands resting on her lap, her eyes pleading. "You really think you can help?" Michael asked carefully. Emma nodded firmly. "I want to try." Michael sighed, rubbing his forehead. He didn't want to embarrass Omar. The man clearly looked important, and strangers usually didn't welcome interference. But Michael also knew his daughter's heart. She wasn't acting out of pride or playfulness. She truly wanted to help. "All right," Michael said finally. "But be respectful. If he says no, you come back right away." Emma's face lit up with relief. She unbuckled her seat belt, smoothed down her simple blue dress, and stood up. The aisle suddenly felt longer than it was as she walked slowly toward the first-class cabin. Passengers turned their heads, watching this small girl make her way forward. Whispers followed her. Some were amused, others confused. Omar, meanwhile, was bouncing Adam in his arms, his own shirt damp with sweat. His patience was thinning, though his love never wavered. He was so focused on calming Adam that he didn't notice Emma until she was standing just a few feet away. "Excuse me, sir," Emma said softly, her voice polite and steady. Omar looked up, startled. His eyes fell on the little girl. He blinked, unsure if he heard her correctly. "Yes?" he asked, his accent thick but gentle. Emma clasped her hands together. "I think I can help your baby." The words caught Omar off guard. He glanced around, half expecting someone to laugh, but the passengers nearby were silent, curious. He stared back at Emma, studying her small but confident face. "You?" Omar asked, puzzled. Emma nodded. "Yes, sir. Sometimes babies just need a new friend. My dad used to say that." For a brief moment, Omar didn't know what to say. Here he was, a man of wealth and power, being offered help by a little girl he had never seen before. Something about Emma's eyes, though calm, sincere, almost wise beyond her years, made him pause. Adam wailed again, his cries breaking Omar's thoughts. His heart ached with helplessness. He could refuse, of course. He could politely send her back to her seat. But what if she was right? What if, just for a moment, this little girl could do what he couldn't? Omar lowered his gaze to Adam, then back to Emma. His voice was heavy with exhaustion. "And what will you do, little one?" Emma gave a small, reassuring smile. "I'll just hold his hand. Sometimes babies like that. Or maybe I can sing a song. I used to sing to my dolls when they cried." Omar's lips twitched at the innocence of her explanation. He almost smiled, despite his worry. The passengers leaned closer, eager to see what would happen next. Omar hesitated, his pride wrestling with his desperation. Finally, with a deep sigh, he nodded. "All right, you may try." Emma's eyes brightened, and she stepped closer. Gently, Omar shifted Adam so the baby faced the girl. Emma extended her small hand and touched Adam's tiny fingers. To everyone's surprise, the baby paused. The cries slowed, then softened into small whimpers. The cabin grew quiet. Omar's eyes widened. Could it really be this simple? Emma leaned closer and whispered, "Hi, Adam. Don't be scared. You're safe." Adam blinked at her, his little chest rising and falling rapidly, but the loud cries faded into soft hiccups. For the first time since the flight began, Omar felt a wave of relief wash over him. He stared at Emma in wonder, unable to believe what he had just witnessed. The passengers around them whispered in amazement, their annoyance replaced with curiosity and even admiration. A little girl had done what even a millionaire father couldn't manage. And this was only the beginning. The cabin of the airplane, which only minutes earlier was filled with frustration and sighs, now seemed strangely calm. The passengers who had rolled their eyes and muttered complaints were suddenly silent, watching in disbelief. A 10-year-old girl had done what no one else could, quiet the baby. Omar stared at his son, then at Emma. Adam's cries had softened to tiny hiccups, and his little hand gripped Emma's finger tightly. His wide eyes studied her face as if he found comfort in her presence. Emma smiled warmly, lowering her voice so only Adam could hear. "It's okay, little one. No need to cry anymore. You're safe up here in the sky." The baby let out a tiny coo, and his lips curled as though he was on the edge of a smile. Omar blinked, hardly believing what he was seeing. His son, who moments ago had been inconsolable, was now calm in the presence of a stranger, a child at that. The flight attendant passed by, her brows raised in surprise. She whispered to Omar, "Would you like me to take the baby, sir?" Omar shook his head quickly. For the first time since boarding, his heart felt lighter. "No, thank you. He is fine now." Emma gently rocked Adam's hand back and forth, her voice soft as she began to hum. The tune was simple, a little melody she had made up years ago for her dolls. Yet, it seemed to work like magic. Adam's eyelids grew heavier, his tiny body relaxing against his father's chest. Omar leaned closer, his deep voice carrying a mixture of awe and gratitude. "How did you do this?" Emma looked up at him with her calm brown eyes. "Babies can feel when someone cares about them. Sometimes they just need a friend. My dad says love is the best medicine." Omar's chest tightened. Such pure words, spoken with innocence, yet carrying a wisdom that even adults often forgot. He glanced over Emma's shoulder and saw Michael standing a few rows back, watching carefully. The father's protective eyes never left his daughter, though he remained seated, giving her space to act. Omar gave a small nod in Michael's direction, a silent thank you. Adam finally drifted into a light sleep, his hand still resting in Emma's. She looked proud but not boastful. Carefully, she whispered to Omar, he just needed to know he wasn't alone. For the next several minutes, the airplane remained calm. The passengers relaxed, some smiling at the scene. The elderly woman who had complained earlier whispered to her husband, "What a sweet girl." Omar adjusted his son gently, making sure Adam was comfortable, then turned to Emma. "What is your name, little one?" "Emma," she answered with a shy smile. Omar repeated it softly, as if testing the sound. "Emma, it suits you. You have a kind heart." Emma blushed slightly. "Thank you, sir." Omar studied her face, then asked, "And that man back there, he is your father?" Emma nodded. Yes. His name is Michael. He takes care of me all by himself. There was pride in her voice, though also a softness that made Omar curious. He looked again at Michael, who gave a polite nod but stayed seated. Omar recognized something familiar in that man's expression, the look of someone who had carried heavy burdens yet still stood tall for the sake of his child. Minutes passed, then nearly an hour. Adam slept peacefully, but whenever he stirred, Emma was there, offering a gentle touch or a quiet hum. Omar found himself talking to her, surprised at how naturally the conversation flowed. "Do you like flying?" he asked. Emma tilted her head. "A little. I like looking at the clouds, but sometimes the noise scares me. I pretend the plane is like a big bird carrying us safely home." Omar chuckled softly. "That is a beautiful way to think." Emma grinned. "Do you fly a lot?" "Yes," Omar admitted, adjusting Adam's blanket. "Too much, perhaps. But this is my first flight with Adam alone. His mother, she is no longer with us." The words came out heavier than he intended. For months he had buried that grief under work, responsibilities, and silence. Saying it aloud to a child felt strange, yet Emma didn't react with pity. Instead, her face softened with understanding. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "My mom, she's not with us either. It's just me and Dad now." Omar's eyes widened. In that instant, an invisible thread connected them, two families broken in different ways, yet both holding onto love as their anchor. "You are very brave," Omar said sincerely. "And your father must be proud of you." Emma smiled gently. "He is. He tells me every night before I go to sleep." Omar's heart stirred. He had promised himself to be strong for Adam, but in truth, he had been terrified, afraid of failing as both father and mother. Yet, here was a little girl, already wise from her own hardships, reminding him of what truly mattered: love, patience, and presence. As time went on, the passengers began treating Emma like a little heroine. Some smiled warmly at her, others whispered praises to Michael when he went to stretch his legs. A young woman leaned over to Michael and said, "Your daughter is remarkable. You must be so proud." Michael nodded humbly. "I am. She's the best part of my life." Emma, still sitting beside Omar now, leaned closer to Adam's tiny ear and whispered something Omar couldn't hear. Whatever it was, Adam sighed in his sleep, his little lips curling upward. Omar finally broke the silence. "Emma, you have given me a gift today. You do not even know how much it means." Emma shrugged lightly. Sometimes small things make big differences. The simplicity of her words struck him like lightning. He repeated them in his mind, realizing how true they were. Money could buy comfort, but it could not buy peace. Power could command respect, but it could not command love. This little girl had given him something priceless: hope. Hours passed, and as the plane soared across the Atlantic, Omar invited Michael to join them in first class. At first, Michael hesitated, shaking his head. "We're fine back here." But Omar insisted. "Please. I owe your daughter much more than comfort. You both deserve to sit here." Reluctantly, Michael agreed. He carried their small bag forward, and Emma clapped her hands in delight when her father sat beside her. Omar extended his hand. "Thank you for raising such a kind daughter, Michael. She has helped me more than words can say." Michael shook his hand firmly. "She has a heart of her own. I only try to guide it." The three adults, though Emma was still a child, her presence felt mature, sat together, talking softly while Adam slept between them. Omar shared small pieces of his story, his wife's gentle smile that he missed every day, and the weight of raising Adam alone. Michael, in turn, spoke of long nights fixing cars just to pay bills, of Emma waiting for him with a plate of food kept warm on the table. Despite their different worlds, one wealthy, one working class, their struggles were the same: the struggle of parenthood, the fear of not being enough, and the joy of seeing their children shine brighter than themselves. As the flight continued, Omar found himself watching Emma and Michael more closely. The way Michael's eyes softened whenever Emma spoke reminded him of how his wife used to look at Adam. The way Emma leaned on her father's shoulder showed a bond built on trust and love. For the first time in months, Omar felt less alone. By the time the captain announced they were halfway to their destination, the cabin felt different. The tension had dissolved into warmth, passengers smiling as they saw Adam resting peacefully, Omar looking calmer, and Emma chatting happily with her father. But deep down, Omar knew this was only the beginning. A single moment had brought two strangers into his world, and something told him their stories were about to intertwine far more than he expected. As Emma leaned down once more and kissed Adam's tiny hand, Omar's heart whispered a thought he had not dared to believe since his wife's passing: maybe life still has new blessings waiting. Arab millionaire's baby cried nonstop on the plane until a single dad's daughter did the unthinkable. Part 3, Conversations. At 30,000 feet the airplane glided smoothly above the clouds, its engines humming steadily. Most passengers had settled into their routines, some sleeping, some reading, some quietly chatting. But in the front of the cabin, something far more meaningful was unfolding. Omar sat with Adam resting peacefully in his arms, the baby's small breath steady against his chest. Beside him sat Michael and Emma, no longer strangers but companions in a moment of unexpected connection. The silence that once carried tension was now replaced with warmth, curiosity, and a quiet sense of comfort. Emma leaned slightly toward Omar, her voice soft as she asked, "Does Adam always cry this much?" Omar gave a tired but amused smile. "Not always. At home, he is calm. But on planes, he seems to be frightened. Maybe the sounds, maybe the air. I do not know. But today was especially hard." Emma nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Sometimes I was like that too. Dad says when I was a baby, I cried the whole night until Grandma came and held me." Michael chuckled, shaking his head at the memory. "She's telling the truth. There were nights I thought I wouldn't survive. But then, she grew up into the calmest little helper I could ever ask for." Omar looked at Michael with quiet admiration. "It is not easy, being a father alone." Michael's smile faded into something softer. "No, it isn't. But it's worth it. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, it all makes sense when I see Emma smile." Omar's chest tightened at those words. He felt the same about Adam, but he had often wondered if he was enough. Could he raise his son without a mother's touch? Could he fill both roles? His wealth could buy nannies and tutors, but could it replace love? Sitting across from Michael, a man with far fewer resources yet a heart full of devotion, Omar found himself reflecting deeply. Emma broke the silence again. "Mr. Omar, can I tell you something?" "Of course," Omar said, leaning closer. Emma's voice lowered as if sharing a secret. "When my mom left, I used to cry a lot too. I thought maybe I did something wrong. But Dad told me it wasn't my fault, and he held me until I believed him." Her words struck Omar like a gentle blow. The innocence of her confession carried so much weight. He cleared his throat, his voice rough. You are very strong, Emma. Stronger than many grown ups I know. Emma shrugged lightly, her braids sliding over her shoulder. I just had to be. And Adam will be strong too, because he has you. Omar felt something stir inside him, a mix of pride and sadness. He kissed the top of Adam's tiny head, whispering, Inshallah, yes, he will be. The hours stretched on, but instead of dragging, they seemed to pass with surprising ease. The three of them, Omar, Michael, and Emma, shared stories that revealed more about their lives. Michael spoke about his small repair shop in Chicago, how he worked long hours but always tried to make it home in time for dinner with Emma. We don't have much, he admitted, but we have enough. And we have each other. That's what matters most. Omar listened carefully, feeling respect grow in his heart. He thought about his own world of luxury, lavish homes, expensive cars, business meetings that never ended. He had everything money could buy, but sitting here with Michael and Emma made him realize that sometimes, the simplest life held the richest treasures. When Omar shared about his wife, her laughter, her love for soft music, the way she used to hold Adam close, both Michael and Emma listened with sincere hearts. Emma even reached out and touched Omar's arm gently, saying, she must have been very special. I think Adam still feels her love. Tears pricked Omar's eyes, though he quickly blinked them away. No one had spoken of his wife with such pure kindness since she passed. Later, as meal service began, the attendants brought trays of food. Omar received his elegant first-class dish, but when he saw the simpler meal Michael and Emma were offered, he immediately called the attendant back. Bring them the same as me, he instructed firmly. Michael shook his head. That's not necessary. But Omar placed a hand on his shoulder. Please. It is not charity, it is sharing. We are family on this flight, are we not? Michael hesitated, then nodded with a small smile. Thank you. Emma beamed, clapping her hands softly. See, Dad. It's like a family dinner in the sky. The three of them laughed quietly at her words, but deep down, each of them felt the truth. Something about the moment did feel like family. After the meal, when the lights in the cabin dimmed for rest, Emma leaned against Michael's shoulder, her eyes growing heavy with sleep. Before drifting off, she whispered, Mr. Omar, can I still hold Adam's hand when I wake up? Omar smiled warmly. Of course, Emma. He will be waiting. She nodded sleepily and closed her eyes. Soon her breathing slowed, steady and peaceful. Michael adjusted a blanket over her, then turned to Omar. The two men sat quietly for a while, the baby sleeping between them. Finally, Omar spoke. You are a good father, Michael. Your daughter is proof. Michael looked down at his hands. I just try my best. Most days, I feel like I'm failing. But when she looks at me the way she does, I guess I must be doing something right. Omar nodded slowly. I understand that feeling. I ask myself the same question every day, if I am enough for Adam. Money gives him comfort, but love is what he truly needs. And I fear I am still learning how to give it. Michael studied Omar carefully. You love him. That's clear. The rest, you'll figure out as you go. That's what parenting is, just figuring it out day by day. Omar let out a soft laugh, almost in relief. Day by day, yes, perhaps that is the secret. As the night wore on, the cabin quieted even further. Only the faint glow of reading lights dotted the darkness. Omar found himself reflecting deeply, his thoughts circling back to his wife, his son, and now this unexpected family seated beside him. For the first time in months, he didn't feel entirely alone. He felt accompanied. When dawn finally approached and the captain announced they would be landing soon, Emma stirred awake. She rubbed her eyes, then immediately leaned toward Adam, touching his tiny hand. The baby woke with a soft whimper, but when he saw Emma's face, he settled almost instantly. Passengers nearby noticed again, smiling and whispering in amazement. It was as if Emma had a gift no one could explain. Omar looked at her with quiet wonder. "Emma, you have done something even I could not." "My son, he trusts you." Emma smiled, her eyes twinkling. "Maybe because I know what it feels like to miss someone. Babies can feel that too." Her words sank deep into Omar's heart. He realized she was right. Adam wasn't just crying because of the plane. He was crying because he felt the absence of his mother. And somehow, this little girl, with her tender heart, had given him comfort he desperately needed. As the plane began its descent, Omar knew this meeting was no accident. Fate had placed Michael and Emma in his path for a reason. The flight would soon end, but something told him their connection had only just begun. He glanced at Michael, then at Emma, and whispered silently to himself, "Maybe this is where healing begins." Arab millionaire's baby cried nonstop on the plane until a single dad's daughter did the unthinkable. Part 4, an invitation. Beyond the flight, the plane landed smoothly on the long runway, wheels touching the ground with a soft rumble. The announcement came through the speakers, welcoming everyone to their destination. Passengers stretched, gathered their belongings, and prepared to leave. For many, the flight had been just another journey, but for Omar, Michael, and Emma, it had been something unforgettable. Adam stirred in his father's arms as the seat belt signs turned off. His small face scrunched for a moment, then relaxed again when he saw Emma leaning toward him. She smiled and whispered, "We're on the ground now, Adam. You did so well." Omar's heart warmed at the sight. He adjusted the baby carefully and said softly, "He truly listens to you. It is remarkable." Michael stood, pulling down their small carry-on from the overhead bin. He glanced at Omar and said, "Well, it looks like this is goodbye. It was nice meeting you, Omar. And, thank you for being kind to Emma." But Omar shook his head firmly. "No, Michael. This cannot be goodbye, not like this. You both came into my life today in a way I will never forget. I wish to see you again." Michael raised an eyebrow. "You hardly know us." Omar smiled faintly. "Perhaps. But sometimes, knowing someone is not about years, it is about moments. And today, Emma gave me one of the most important moments of my life." Michael was silent for a while, studying Omar's expression. He saw no arrogance, no empty politeness, only sincerity. Emma tugged on her father's sleeve and whispered, "Dad, maybe we can see him again. Adam still needs me." Michael chuckled at her words but gave a slow nod. "All right. If fate allows it." As passengers began filing out, Omar exchanged contact information with Michael. "Please, if you ever need anything at all, do not hesitate to call. I mean this with my whole heart." Michael tucked the card into his pocket. "Thank you. But we're simple people, Omar. We don't need much." Omar looked at Emma, then back at Michael. "Sometimes, it is not about need. Sometimes, it is about friendship." The three of them walked out of the aircraft together, stepping into the bustling airport filled with announcements, luggage carts, and families reuniting. Omar's chauffeur was waiting near the exit, holding a sign with his name. The black car parked outside looked sleek and polished, a reminder of Omar's wealthy life. Michael hesitated, adjusting the strap of their worn-out bag on his shoulder. He was used to buses, taxis, and the occasional borrowed car, not luxury vehicles with drivers waiting in uniforms. Emma, however, stared at the car with wide eyes. "Dad, it looks like a movie car." Omar noticed Michael's hesitation. "Please," he said gently. "Allow me to drop you at your hotel." "It would be my honor." Michael shook his head quickly. "No, no, we'll be fine. We can take a cab." But Omar insisted. "Michael, you gave me something priceless today. Let me at least do this small thing." Michael looked at Emma, who gave him a pleading glance. Finally, he sighed. "All right, just this once." The chauffeur helped place their bag in the trunk, and soon the four of them were inside the spacious car. Emma sat beside Omar, her small hand reaching toward Adam again. The baby instantly wrapped his fingers around hers, and Omar couldn't help but smile. The ride through the city was quiet but comfortable. Skyscrapers rose against the sky, people hurried along sidewalks, and traffic lights flickered red and green. Emma chatted happily, pointing at buildings and telling Adam little stories as if he understood every word. Michael leaned back, watching his daughter, then turned to Omar. "I have to say, this is one of the strangest flights I've ever had. But also one of the best." Omar chuckled. "For me as well, my friend. Life is full of surprises." When the car finally stopped outside a modest hotel, Michael reached for the door handle. "This is us." "Thank you again, Omar." "Really?" But Omar wasn't ready to part ways yet. He looked at Michael, then at Emma, and an idea formed in his heart. "I have a proposal," he said slowly. Michael paused. "What kind of proposal?" Omar took a deep breath. "Tomorrow, I must attend an important business meeting. But after that, I have no plans. I was thinking, perhaps you and Emma would join me and Adam for dinner. Nothing formal, just a chance to spend more time together." Michael hesitated, unsure. He had never been invited by a man of such wealth before, and he didn't want to feel out of place. But before he could answer, Emma clasped her hands together excitedly. "Dad, please. I want to see Adam again. And Mr. Omar too." Michael sighed, unable to resist her enthusiasm. "All right. One dinner." Omar's face brightened. "Wonderful. I will have my driver pick you up tomorrow evening. Until then, rest well." As Michael and Emma stepped out of the car, Omar watched them disappear into the hotel lobby. Adam stirred in his arms, letting out a tiny yawn. Omar whispered to his son, "We may have just met angels today, my boy." The next evening, as promised, Omar's car arrived at the hotel. Michael and Emma were waiting outside. Michael wore his cleanest shirt, still simple but neat. Emma wore a light yellow dress with a ribbon in her hair, her excitement obvious. When they arrived at Omar's residence, a grand but tasteful home with wide windows and a lush garden, Michael felt slightly overwhelmed. The marble floors, the high ceilings, the gentle lighting, it was a world far from his own. But Emma's attention was only on Adam, who reached out for her the moment he saw her. She ran forward with a laugh. "See? He remembers me." Omar welcomed them warmly. "Please, make yourselves at home. Tonight, we are not guests and host, we are family." The dinner table was filled with delicious dishes, but the atmosphere was what made it special. They laughed, shared more stories, and found themselves forgetting the gap between wealth and simplicity. At one point, Omar looked at Michael seriously. "You know, yesterday I felt like I was drowning. Adam's cries, my helplessness, it made me doubt myself. But then Emma came, and suddenly everything changed. I realized I don't have to be perfect. I just have to love him." Michael nodded. "That's the truth of parenting. It's never about being perfect, it's about being present." Emma, holding Adam on her lap, added, "And about being patient." Both men laughed, but they knew she was right. The night grew deeper, and when it was finally time for Michael and Emma to leave, Omar felt an ache in his heart. He didn't want this bond to end so quickly. As they stood at the door, Omar said quietly, "Michael, Emma, I don't know what tomorrow brings. But I do know this meeting you has been one of the greatest blessings of my life. I hope this is only the beginning of our story." Michael extended his hand, firm and steady. "Then let's make sure it is." Emma hugged Adam gently one last time before whispering, "Don't worry, I'll see you soon." Omar watched them leave, a deep sense of peace settling over him. For the first time since his wife's passing, he felt that life was opening a new chapter, one filled with hope, friendship, and perhaps even healing. And though none of them could see the future, all three knew one thing for certain: their paths had crossed for a reason. The days after that dinner seemed to move quickly, yet every moment remained fresh in Omar's mind. His home, once filled only with silence and Adam's occasional cries, now held echoes of Emma's laughter and Michael's calm, steady voice. For the first time since tragedy had struck his life, Omar found himself waking up with a sense of anticipation, wondering when he might see them again. Michael and Emma, too, carried the memory with them. Their hotel room felt warmer now, less lonely, as Emma often replayed the night in her mind. She told her father again and again, "Dad, Adam really needs me. And Omar, he smiles more when I'm around." Michael would smile at her words, but deep inside, he knew his daughter was right. Something invisible yet undeniable had tied their lives together. On the third day, as Michael was packing their things to prepare for their next journey, a knock came at the hotel door. Emma jumped to open it, and her face lit up when she saw Omar standing there, Adam in his arms, and his chauffeur waiting politely behind. "Omar!" Emma squealed, rushing forward. Adam stretched his tiny hands toward her, gurgling with excitement. Michael looked surprised. "Omar? What are you doing here?" Omar stepped inside with a gentle smile. "I heard you were leaving today. I could not allow you to go without seeing you one last time. At least let me drive you to the station or the airport." Michael sighed. "You don't have to trouble yourself. We're used to traveling on our own." Omar shook his head firmly. "Michael, do not call it trouble. It is friendship." Emma, hugging Adam close, looked up at her father. "Please, Dad. Just this once more." Michael saw the hope in her eyes and nodded. "All right." The car ride was long, but it didn't feel that way. Emma kept Adam entertained, whispering little stories and rocking him gently in her lap. Omar watched her closely, his heart touched every time his son's face lit up with joy. At one point, Omar said softly, "Emma has given Adam something even I could not give him: peace. She has a gift." Michael turned his head, his voice steady. "She's been through a lot herself. Losing her mother made her stronger. She understands pain better than most children. Maybe that's why she knows how to comfort others." Omar looked at Michael thoughtfully. "You are raising a remarkable daughter." The world needs more fathers like you. Michael chuckled. I'm just doing my best. Some days it feels like I'm failing. But then she smiles, and I realize she's the one teaching me. Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment, both men understood each other, two fathers from completely different worlds, bound by love for their children. When they reached the train station, Michael gathered their bags while Emma lingered with Adam. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Don't cry when I'm gone, okay? You're strong, just like your dad." Omar approached, his expression conflicted. He wanted to say something, but words felt too small. Finally, he placed his hand on Michael's shoulder. "This feels unfinished. I do not want this to be the last time we meet." Michael smiled faintly. "Life is unpredictable. Maybe our paths will cross again." Emma tugged on Omar's sleeve. "Promise you'll let me see Adam again." Omar bent down to her level, his dark eyes filled with warmth. "I promise, little one. No matter where you are, you will always have a place in my home." Emma's eyes sparkled. "Then it's not goodbye. It's just, see you later." The train whistle blew, sharp and loud. Michael and Emma boarded, waving from the window as the train pulled away. Omar stood there, holding Adam close, his heart heavy yet strangely full. For the rest of the evening, Omar kept hearing Emma's words, "It's not goodbye. It's just see you later." Weeks passed. Omar returned to his work, meetings, and responsibilities, but every evening, when he put Adam to bed, he remembered the way Emma's gentle touch had calmed him. One night, his phone rang. He almost ignored it, but then he noticed the name flashing on the screen: Michael. Omar answered quickly. "Michael? Is everything all right?" Michael's voice was calm, but Omar could sense the weight behind his words. I wouldn't have called unless it was important. We've had some struggles lately. Work's been hard to find, and traveling isn't easy with Emma. I remembered what you said on the plane about friendship. And I thought, maybe I should reach out." Omar didn't hesitate. "Michael, thank you for trusting me. Whatever you need, consider it done. You and Emma are not alone." There was a pause on the line, then Michael whispered, "I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," Omar replied. "Just know you have family here." Within days, arrangements were made. Michael and Emma traveled to Omar's city, this time not as passing guests but as friends welcomed with open arms. Omar ensured they had a comfortable place to stay, but more than that, he offered them something priceless: belonging. Emma and Adam were inseparable again. They played in the garden, Emma patiently teaching him new words, while Omar and Michael watched from the terrace. "She has changed him," Omar said quietly. "His laughter is freer now. His eyes are brighter." Michael nodded. "And he has changed her too. She's smiling more these days." The two men shared a long silence before Omar spoke again. "Michael, have you ever thought that maybe we were meant to meet that day? That it was not just chance?" Michael looked at him, thoughtful. "I've thought about it every day since." Months rolled by, and what began as an unexpected meeting on a plane grew into something neither of them could have predicted. Emma became like a sister to Adam, and Omar became more than just a friend to Michael. One evening, as the sun set in golden streaks across the horizon, Omar invited Michael for a walk in the garden. Adam and Emma played ahead of them, their laughter filling the air. "Michael," Omar began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I want to ask you something. Not as a man of wealth, but as a father. Adam has found family in Emma. And I believe Emma has found something here too. I wish for this bond to last not just for today, but for years to come. Would you consider staying here, with us? Michael was stunned. He had never imagined such an offer. His whole life had been about moving, surviving, carrying the weight alone. And now, someone was offering him not just support, but a place to belong. He looked at Emma, who was holding Adam's hand, guiding him carefully across the grass. She glanced back at her father, her eyes shining with happiness, as if she already knew his answer. Michael took a deep breath. I came into your life by accident, Omar. But maybe accidents are just another name for destiny. If Emma is happy here, then yes, we will stay. Omar's eyes softened with relief. Then from today, we are not just friends. We are family. That night, the four of them sat together on the terrace. The stars stretched endlessly above, and the air was filled with the sound of children's laughter. Emma leaned against her father, whispering, "Dad, I told you Adam needs me." Michael kissed her forehead. You were right, sweetheart. But maybe we needed them too. Omar looked at Adam, then at Michael and Emma. His heart, once heavy with loneliness, now felt whole. Life had taken him through storms, but on a crowded plain, with a crying baby and a kind-hearted little girl, he had found light again. And as Emma gently rocked Adam to sleep under the quiet sky, Omar knew with certainty this was not the end of a journey. It was the beginning of a new family, one stronger than distance, richer than wealth, and bound forever by love.